can't decide on a quarterback, which sometimes means you don't have a quarterback, which it's hard for me to believe with Jaxson Dart and Spencer Sanders that you don't have a quarterback. But quarterback stuff can get weird, and that's the part that I'm curious about, because if you're Jaxson Dart and it's, hey, stop turning the ball over, hey, make better reads. Well, now you're saying, hey, stop turning the ball over, and hey, make better reads. And if you don't,
or else
we're going to bring in this guy that started 41 of 44 games at Oklahoma State over the last 4 years. And he comes in, and you go and look at Spencer Sanders' numbers. They're pretty good. The better teams, he was pretty average. He pretty dependent on his feet. Kiffin wants to throw the ball down the field. And then he comes in. What happens if he struggles? Is he looking over his shoulder? And then whoever's not playing, what are they like? What's the body language like? What are they like in the locker room? What are they like at practice? That stuff can become problematic for a team. That can become an issue. There's a reason that you and I've talked about this before. Cliches hang around for a reason. The whole if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one cliche has stuck around for a long time. And that will be interesting. So, but again, I think they win those 3 games, and then their season gets started with that 3-game set that we just talked about with Alabama, LSU, and Arkansas.
Okay, I've read your stuff. I know you think Jaxson Dart is the quarterback. I think your internal sourcing has told you that. Why are they doing this thing where they haven't named a starter yet?
Well, here's the thing. Again, I'm going to be pragmatic here. Ole Miss had just lost 5 of 6 games when the season ended with the loss to Texas Tech in the Texas Bowl. And in the wake of that, they didn't blame Jaxson Dart, but they didn't absolve him of blame either. And nobody came out and said, hey, this wasn't Jackson's fault. None of this was Jackson's fault. We had great quarterback play. We just lost games. They implied that, hey, we didn't make some good reads, had some turnovers, whatever. They bring in Spencer Sanders in January, less than a month after the end of the season. It's our intelligence that they signed him to a pretty lucrative NIL deal or pay-for-play deal, because I don't know that he's done any name, image, license. So
you don't say.
Whatever. But they gave him a pretty good salary, right? And so do you do that? Again, there are only a certain number of reasons that you bring in a player like Spencer Sanders who's played that much football and you give him that much of your NIL pie. Are you doing it to light a fire under Jaxson Dart? I mean, I guess that's kind of silly. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Are you doing it because you just want to make the room as deep as possible? Okay, but it's kind of different, hey, we want to make our defensive tackle room as deep as possible. Cool. Nobody ever says, hey, if you've got 6 defensive tackles, you don't have 2. Nobody ever says that. Nobody ever says, if you've got 4 linebackers, you don't have 2. But are you adding They added Walker Howard from LSU. Made total sense, right? Young guy, had 4 years of eligibility left. You got to deepen the room. They did that. But when you add Sanders, it's conceivable on the list of reasons that you added Sanders is because you think he's going to be your quarterback.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a nice insurance policy if nothing else.
Yeah, but I don't think you spend that kind of NIL capital on an insurance.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
I think they brought him in to be the quarterback, and then Dart did what they didn't think Dart would do, which was, I'm not leaving, I'm doubling down. And then Sanders had the shoulder issue in the spring. Dart had a really good spring, and here we go. And now we don't see practice. We don't really know what's happening in practice. Maybe Dart's not taking that deep ball when it's there. Maybe he's turning the ball over. Maybe it's just they're not set on him. I don't know. It's my understanding that Dart will be the starter. But look, the fact that Lane Kiffin, who is as popular as you can be here right now, doesn't name him the starter tells you one of 2 things. Either he doesn't know who the starter is going to be to the point that he's willing to name it, or he's concerned that what will happen to Sanders if he names Dart the starter, or what will happen to Dart if he names Sanders the starter.
Yeah.
And so it tells me that on Saturday, in a game that they're going to win, that they're both going to play. But again, look, they're going to wake up on Sunday morning playing Alabama in 20 days. I mean, you better kind of figure some of this stuff out, because if you're going to get to Atlanta, if you're going to win the SEC West, and that's their stated goal, you can't lose to both Alabama and LSU in September and still do it. That's not realistic. So you don't have a ton of time to figure this out, unlike a year ago where you had kind of 7 games to sort things out before you went to Baton Rouge.